Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
Some more Amari Cooper trade reaction. We'll go over a few of our biggest lingering takeaways, good and bad, from the Bills' victory over the Jets on Monday night. Take a little bit of a peek into the Tennessee Titans. Plenty more coming up today on Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching and for listening, for following and subscribing. Appreciate you guys very much. If you are subscribed only on the video side, do me a favor. Hit pause on the video real quick. Go to either Spotify or Apple, type in Talking Buffalo, and hit follow there. It really helps us continue to grow the show on the audio side. Plus, it's the only place where you're going to be guaranteed to get every single episode in its entirety, plus some bonus episodes that we're going to be dropping. As for today, I am joined a day later than normal, but still have him on this week. My guy, Matt Warren, SB Nation. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
We're doing good. Bills get a win. We got some trade stuff to talk about, all sorts of fun.
Yeah, it was a pretty packed episode. It's been a busy, a hectic week so far for the Bills, from playing on Monday, of course, to the big trade on Tuesday, but in a good way. You got a W. You know, the headline for me with this game, and kind of the headline for the title of this episode, actually, is ugly wins still look sexy in the standings the next day. You know, it doesn't, there's no asterisk next to an ugly win. A W is a W, especially on the road and especially against a divisional rival. It's always good to get a win. It looks sexy, like I said, in the standings. We'll get to that, talk a little bit more, some lingering stuff left from the Bills-Jets game. For that, though, obviously the big news on Tuesday early afternoon, the Bills trade for Amari Cooper. This comes a couple hours after the Jets traded for Devonte Adams. I thought the price was very reasonable. We've talked about Amari Cooper. In fact, we talked about him quite literally on the show just a week ago. It's a reality now. The trade deadline was not until November 5th, so maybe a little bit surprised that the trigger was pulled this early. I would assume Brandon Beane saw some things and said, you know, we got to fix it now. But anyway, what was your initial reaction to finding out? I'm sure you had other stuff going on throughout Tuesday, and then you peep up. For me, real quick here, and I don't want to retell the same story I did on yesterday's show, but I did record an episode originally that was set to drop, and it obviously was just Bills, Jets takeaways, and some other stuff. It had nothing to do with Amari Cooper. I literally had just gotten done recording and editing, and as soon as I did, it was Ian Rappaport. I had just happened to pop up my TweetDeck. I have TweetDeck on my laptop, and bam, it was Ian Rappaport. Then I had to click his name to see if it was a phony, and it was him. And then like bam, like 3 or 4 straight tweets. I was like, well, this is a reality, man. What was your initial reaction to Amari Cooper?
Well, the Amari Cooper stuff was, I was all day yesterday. I was in Devonte Adams mode, and then I had to make a left turn into Amari Cooper mode because you had said something like, you don't know what my day was like. Yeah, well, I mean, I spent a good hour working with Silver and Black Pride and Gangrene Nation, trying to get all the stuff tweaked for the Devonte Adams deal.
Sure.
And talking about all the details of that. And then in the afternoon, I had to obviously pivot. I was the one that ended up writing the story of Buffalo Rumblings because, I'm full-time. Those guys are contractors. And so when the news broke, I was the only one around. I just happened to be there. And so I wrote it up for Buffalo Rumblings, then pivoted over to Dogs by Nature to make sure that they had everything covered. And so that was kind of what my day was like yesterday. It was kind of all the wide receiver trade market. So it was pretty fun because all 4 of those sites are sites that I, directly manage. So we had a good day over at those 4 sites anyway.
Yeah.
So as far as the Amari Cooper trade goes, he was always the one that made the most sense just because of the cap situation. The fact that he was on the veteran minimum base salary, which is the only thing that the Bills are going to have to pay unless I think it's second team all pro or first team all pro or something. Maybe I'm confusing the Adams trade and the Cooper trade, but like he's got some incentives that they might end up having to pay, but that's, minimal, and they won't have to pay for it until 2025 anyway. So it always made the most sense as far as the base salary went. I think they ended up paying a premium for it. You saw when Cooper was traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Cleveland Browns, it was only a 5th round pick I think they got in return, but the Browns, the cash situation was a lot different. And so
Sure.
when they've already paid him so much money, they wanted to get a better rate of return than the Cowboys did. And they obviously did that. It's a little bit more than I want to pay for an 11-game rental. It's equivalent to about a late 3rd round pick, like compensatory style, very end of the 3rd round or early 4th round, depending on where the two teams finish. But I think the financials just made too much sense for it to not work. And so, whether it's Brandon Beane watching the receivers during the Jets game and finally being like enough, or MVS is the one that they cut to make room for Cooper, and like he played a lot of snaps in that game and he was darn near invisible. So I mean, like you can see where that game would compel the Bills to pull the trigger even before the trade deadline. But I think it probably has more to do with Devonte Adams, don't you? I mean, the timing just seems a little bit too suspect. Like maybe the Bills were in on Adams when they all decide that Adams is going to go to the Jets, then the Bills pivot quickly to their second option. So it just seems a little bit convenient as far as the timing goes. But, it just made a lot of sense for the Bills. Obviously, everyone's been talking about it for 3 weeks, but he wouldn't have been my first choice if like I had my choice, but I mean, obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
You mentioned MVS. He had all those snaps he's played. He had 1 target in the last 2 games combined, and it was a 3rd down drop in Houston. They had to upgrade there. I do think that Devonte Adams going to the Jets, and I want to get your reaction to him going to New York. They just submitted as well. I think it at least played a part. I don't know how much of a part it played, but I think it certainly played a part, maybe because Amari Cooper is a guy that they liked based on what his salary was, what his history is, what he brings to the table. There's a lot of people out there like, oh, they just traded for a guy who's only got $1 million salary. Like, no, they traded for a guy who had a $20 million base salary going into this year. Cleveland converted it into a bonus. Cleveland is paying, they converted that into a bonus. Like I said, his base salary was real cheap. I'm okay with the price, dude. I think things changed with the Bills and Brandon Beane from how they were feeling and operating this winter and spring to where the Bills are at right now, 6 weeks into the season. You lose so many big name guys, veterans, core players, captains. You don't really replace them with much. We've talked about this when you've been on the show. This free agent class that Brandon Beane brought in to this point has been complete garbage. It just has. It's still a good team, but not because of any free agent additions that the Bills had brought in. So anyway, you didn't spend a lot of money. You're in a lot of cap trouble. Now, that's all not on Brandon Beane. He had to go bargain bin shopping because of the cap. And the Jets and Miami, we all thought they were going to be significantly better than they've been this year. But now you're 6 weeks into the season. You're 4-2. I don't want to say you got a stranglehold on the AFC East, but you're in firm control. I mean, you're 2.5 games up on the Jets, 1.5 up on Miami, and you beat both those teams on the road already. I think that changes the game. So that's a big part of it. You say, hey, if we go get one more weapon, why are we not in the same level, the same tier, the same mix as Kansas City, Baltimore, and Houston? We saw firsthand that MVS just gave them nothing. We've seen props to Matt Collins, who did score a touchdown last week, but he's a 4th or 5th receiver and a good special teams player, man. He shouldn't be on the field like he is. That's the pawn. That's the piece, I feel like, on the offense anyway, that the Bills badly needed. He makes other guys better, too. Cooper out there is going to take some attention off Kincaid, which, by the way, remember week 1? It wasn't that long ago where we were talking about Arizona triple team and Dalton Kincaid. That shit ain't happening no more. Khalil Shakir, Coleman is continuing to grow. The wide receiver room looks a hell of a lot better today than it did yesterday.
Yeah, it lets them all kind of slot into better roles. Matt Collins goes down to that fourth role instead of getting 70% of the snaps or whatever it was. And I mean, it's interesting to your point. Like, I still think they're keying on Kincaid in the red zone. We saw that with the Jets a little bit in this game. And that's why kind of like, Dawson Knox is open on that play, even though it was like a scramble drill. I get it. But like, that's why he was open for the touchdown. Like, they're still keying on Dalton Kincaid. They might not be triple teaming him. And he actually led the Bills in catches in this game, which, is another fun stat. Like, he might be like starting to round into form. Not that I think he was doing anything wrong. I just think that some of the other receivers, and obviously the addition of Cooper, is going to start to take some of the attention away from him, like you just said. So I like kind of where it is now. And, they were able to manufacture space for the receivers in those first 3 weeks when the offense was kind of high flying. And then, as we've gone over the last 3 weeks and they haven't really been getting separation, and you're seeing defenses pivot, to playing that man defense against the Bills, kind of daring them to create separation, and then they're not creating separation. I think this sort of opens up that possibility as well, that they might not be able to play man because Cooper can do the things that he can do coming off the break. So
yeah, Amari Cooper is one of the better route runners in this league, without question. He fits the type of mold that we thought the Bills had been the last couple of years at Brandon Beane liked, which was really odd this offseason that he went and got guys like MVS and Coleman a little bit through the draft, but MVS and Matt Collins, that our separation is not their key. That's not their thing. Cooper, it is. Yeah, that's just, I think this team feels different now about him. And you're right about Dalton Kincaid. I go back to the Houston game, Matt, and it just felt like a lack of confidence that Josh at one point started having in his receivers to make a play, which he had every right to. I mean, Josh was part of the problem, not the solution in Houston. But again, it felt like he was fighting Houston, and what's the saying? He was bringing a couple knives to a gunfight, and wasn't going to work with that. Wasn't going to work with that unit. Yeah. Typically, on Tuesday, I like to really spend some time watching the All-22, and I'll watch some plays, especially on offense, at least a couple times. Didn't really get that chance, A, because the Bills played late on Monday night instead of Sunday, and then B, like I said, Amari Cooper just changed the whole trajectory of my Tuesday. But even in this Jets game, which we'll talk about in a couple here, a lot of the success that they had on offense was Josh extending plays with his legs. Guys weren't getting open quick. I mean, a little bit here and there. They did get rid of the ball in the second half, especially a little bit better. Josh got rid of the ball quicker, and they had some success doing that. But the play to the big play to Ray Davis, the touchdown to Dawson Knox, where he quite literally slipped in between Deion Dawkins and Michael Clemens. That was insane. I don't know if you've seen it. Oh my God. Like, he didn't get around Clemens. He went in between both of them. It was insane.
Why are you doing that? Why are you going there?
It worked. And he threw a touchdown pass to Dawson Knox. But you know what I'm saying. It wasn't like because the Bills were getting a lot of separation and it didn't look like they were winning the receivers, but Josh was just extending plays and making it happen. What about the Jets? Devonte Adams earlier in the day goes to the Jets. We talked about him last week on the show. Obviously, he was the big name. Are you a little surprised that they pulled that trigger after losing to the Bills? Like, what are they doing at this point? And does Devonte Adams move the needle for the Jets? He's a great player. Does he really move the needle for the Jets, though? What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny because, like, the clip that keeps being shared is Bill Belichick absolutely roasting Woody Johnson during the Manning cast, and how he's just like, ready, shoot, aim. Like, this feels like a desperation scramble move.
Sure.
I don't think the wide receivers, I don't think Aaron Rodgers played really well in that game, I thought. Like, I don't think that the passing skill position players are the problem that the Jets have. And so, I mean, is Devonte Adams going to make them better? Yeah. But is he going to be the difference between 2 or 3 more wins for them over the course of the season? I just don't see that happening. They obviously traded, a third-round pick for him, just like the Bills traded for Cooper, but, they're going to be paying him whatever it is, $11 million. And then somehow renegotiating with him for the $32 million next season. Or what they're doing now is they're Hassan Reddicking it. They're just going to deal with it later and hope that they can, get him a different deal that's not $32 million. But, I don't think that the wide receiver position was their problem. And so they should have, in my opinion, traded for an offensive lineman to help them out. We saw how many times, Aaron Rodgers got hit against the Bills. He's been hit a lot this season. I'm 41. Rodgers is just a little bit younger than me. And I hurt my back this weekend doing nothing. So Aaron Rodgers getting hit over and over again by these massive human individuals, it just feels like they should have done a little bit more to help their offensive line as opposed to the passing game. But I also get that Aaron Rodgers being happy is important, but wouldn't that also make him happy?
Yeah. General manager Aaron Rodgers is happy today. Look, first of all, Devonte Adams is a big upgrade over Mike Williams. Mike Williams is kind of giving me those Von Miller after coming off the ACL, Trey White after coming off the Achilles vibes, where he's out there, but he's not doing anything well. Couple of mistakes he made in the Bills game on Monday night. So the upgrade is definitely there. But now, what does that mean for Garrett Wilson going forward? I mean, that's your guy who played really well too on Monday night. Yeah. Look, does Devonte Adams block? Is he pass block? Is he getting after the quarterback? If I'm a Jets fan, I would have rather, get Hassan Reddick in uniform. That to me would have moved the needle more than traded for Devonte Adams, or go find a left tackle or a right tackle, even better, that you could pay $11.6 million in salary to. That's an upgrade over Morgan Moses, who's been hurt, and when he's out there, he's kind of been a borderline train wreck. Your quarterback, who I hate as a person, I've said this a million times, but he is getting killed, and he's not young and big and strong like Josh Allen. He's not built to withstand the punishment. In every single game, he's getting banged up. His knees are getting sore. He looked like he had a headache against the Bills. He got hit a couple times. He showed him on the sidelines. Let me ask you this too, real quick. Did it bother you, if you were a Jets fan, would it bother you to hear Aaron Rodgers post-game pretty much throwing Mike Williams under the bus, pointing his finger at him? I think of the Bills, and you can say what you want about Sean McDermott or Josh Allen, and they could be boring and bland and vanilla, but I can't ever see a scenario where Josh Allen would blame Matt Collins or MVS for, you got to make these plays, you got to be better, there's no excuse, blah, 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 blah. He basically threw Mike Williams under the bus. A guy who's $10 million for this one season, too, with the Jets. What a terrible... That owner sucks, by the way. But could you ever see a scenario where Josh Allen would ever do that to one of his receivers? And if you were a Jets fan, what would be your thoughts on Rodgers doing that to Mike Williams?
Yeah, I haven't actually read what Jets fans were saying, just because, like I said, I was way more focused on the Devonte Adams and Amari Cooper stuff. But, yeah, you're right. I don't see Josh Allen doing that. Josh Allen, for everything else that, you might want to say about him on the field, off the field, he has pretty much always said and done the right thing, whether it's, making sure that a kid gets, his armband as he's leaving the field, as opposed to some adult that's standing right next to him, or, just in the press conferences, taking all the heat for him on himself, as opposed to the rest of the guys. It just feels like he wouldn't do that. And he whether it's from media training or whatever it is, just because he's a different type of guy. I mean, Rodgers obviously has an ego to him. I'm sure Josh does too. That's not an issue, but Aaron Rodgers has an ego where he had to make sure that everyone knew that interception wasn't his fault, and he blames Mike Williams in the post-game presser. He just had to make sure that everybody knew that the play design, so that they didn't have to wait for Pro Football Focus to say something or whatever. He just wanted to make sure everyone knew the assignment, because it's not my fault, guys. And so it does not surprise me at all that Rodgers did that. But and if you're a Jets fan, just like Packers fans before, you're either okay with that or you don't like him. And I know a lot of Packers fans that loved him on the field, but didn't like him as a person, or like him as, a person in post-game press conferences, whatever you want to say, or even body language on the sideline. But they rooted for him when he threw a lot of touchdown passes. And so I think probably most Jets fans have come to that realization over the last 16 months.
Props to Ryan Fitzpatrick too, because he got called out Aaron Rodgers on Twitter X on Tuesday night for throwing his teammates under the bus. He says that's something you're the quarterback. I'm paraphrasing, but basically what he said is man up, you take the blame in front of the media, and then you go behind closed doors and you let Mike Williams know what he needs to do, or you let the whole team know that they need to be better. But you take that sword. You're the leader of this team, and leaders don't go in front of a camera and freaking blame their teammates for mistakes. It's just, you just don't do that. Two more things here before I get to a break, and then I want to talk a little bit of Jets still, a little takeovers or takeaways, I should say, and then a little peek at the Titans in the league as well. When it comes to this trade, am I being a homer? You can let me know. You'll be honest with me. I would have preferred Amari Cooper, his skill set, but more importantly, his salary and the compensation, if I had my choice, over paying Devonte Adams $11.6 million and giving up a conditional third that might end up becoming a second. I'm not saying that Amari Cooper is a better football player than Devonte Adams, although I don't think the gap is that wide either. Amari Cooper has been a very steady, solid, consistent receiver, which I think the Bills need more. Anyway, the need, the player, the compensation, and most importantly, the contract, what the Bills would have had to finagle to make it even work for Devonte Adams if Brandon Beane really even did want him. Did the Bills do the smarter thing by going to get Cooper? It kind of sounds like around the league people are thinking that as well. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's accurate. What people aren't talking about with the Devonte Adams trade is that the Raiders did not want to pay the full salary for Devonte Adams for this game. And so the Raiders didn't want to pay the salary that they would have had to for the Bills to make that trade happen. And so it would have been like whatever, 15 or $16 million that they would have had to eat for the Bills to make that happen. You know, Mark Davis doesn't have a lot of money, actual liquid cash. Like all of his net worth is in his sports teams, right? And so for them to make that payment would have been a very big deal for them. So I think the Bills wouldn't have paid a conditional third up to a second. It probably would have been a conditional second up to a first, or a first plus a conditional pick later. So the Bills would have had to give up a premium asset, an even more premium asset, I guess is the right way to say it, in order to get Devonte Adams. And so for the trade compensation, what they're actually paying him in a contract, it makes a lot more sense. And to your point, I don't think that, Adams, or I don't think Cooper is necessarily better than Adams, but also Adams probably really wanted to go play with Aaron Rodgers, even as awesome as Josh Allen is. And so I think all of the situation kind of worked out the way we all expected it to, which is like usually not what happens, but I think like everyone saw the writing on the wall, and I think these pieces fit the right way.
One last thing with Amari Cooper, we're assuming that he's a rental because he's going to be a free agent and he's 30 years old. I mean, that's not to say that, look, he comes here and by say week 10, 11, him and Josh are starting to get some chemistry. And at the end of the season, they're really clicking and this offense is humming. And after the season, he's like, you know what? This is a good football team, a good franchise, a good organization. The fans love me. Oh, and I'm playing with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You know what? Let's work out a 2-year, $24 million contract, and you can have some void years and some you can finagle numbers to make them look any way you want. There's no guarantee. If things work out, it's not a foregone conclusion that Amari Cooper is only going to be a half-season rental. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, they're still young at receiver with Coleman and with Shakir and with Kincaid. We'll count him among the pass catchers right now. Give me a guy who's next season will be 31 years old, and if he's still good and if he works out with Josh, there's absolutely no reason why he wouldn't have interest in coming back. Does he want to go on and do the Calvin Ridley route where he goes and gets a big bag and goes to a shitty team, which we're about to talk about in a few minutes here, and be miserable and be swearing at the media 6 weeks into his tenure with that team? He just came from an awful situation in Cleveland with the worst quarterback in football, one of the worst people in football. I'm sure his teammates, if he didn't hate his own quarterback, the fans certainly do. So there's incentive and motivation if this works out for Amari Cooper for this to be more than just a little short-term rental. Let me ask you one last question here about these two. So now we're 6 weeks into the season. You probably would like to see it, in March and April, but at the end of the day, Khalil Shakir has been on both last year's team and this year's team. You've basically replaced Curtis Samuel and Matt Collins now with Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield. You lose Gabe Davis, you lose Stephon Diggs. That's your 1 and 2. Today, this week, or say next week, for sure, he should be out there by then. But now you got Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman in place of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Do you think this receiver room is actually better now in week 6 than it was on April 2nd or whatever, March 12th, before Gabe Davis left and went to Jacksonville? Do you think there's a reasonable case to make that the Bills receiving room is actually better now than it was last year?
I think there's a case to make for it, but I wouldn't personally make that case. I think Diggs is probably still better than Cooper, and I think that Gabe Davis is probably still better than, 6 games into his rookie season, Keon Coleman. I mean, maybe not the way he's played this year with the Jaguars, but
he's been terrible with the Jaguars. He had the worst 2 touchdown stat line I've ever seen, or one of them in London this week. That was just brutal. He dropped 2 touchdowns right in his hands too.
Yeah, I think if you have Steph Diggs and Gabe Davis on this Bills team, which I wouldn't have advocated for, I like the position the Bills are in better now. I think those 2 players are probably better than Amari Cooper, coming in cold in the middle of the season, and Keon Coleman in his 6th NFL game. But by wildcard weekend, by the divisional round, maybe Keon Coleman's starting to figure it out a little bit better. Maybe Amari Cooper's picked up enough of the offense where he's super effective. I think going into, Halloween on October 31st, I don't think that this wide receiver core is better than the one last year.
That's fair. I framed that poorly. What I could have said was, what would you rather have today necessarily? Because what you could say is Gabe Davis is who he is at this point. He ain't changing. He's going to have a couple big moments, a couple big catches, and he's going to drop balls, and he's going to completely disappear in games. We've already seen it with Jacksonville. Stephon Diggs is still really good in Houston, but there's a reason why the Bills traded Stephon Diggs beyond the football field. Whatever, I'm not going to speculate who, whatever in the locker room, but we all know there was issues in that locker room that led to Stephon being gone. With how much of it's his fault, how much is it Sean's fault, who the hell knows? But now you got a guy starting fresh in Cooper and a guy in Coleman who's just beginning his career, who's got growth and potential ahead of him, as opposed to Gabe Davis, who is who he is. So,
and then by the way, you're also paying Amari Cooper whatever it is, $800,000, and you're paying Keon Coleman just over $1 million. I think I can't remember what the number is, but I mean that there's something to be said for that. Gabe Davis making whatever he's making, and
$13 million
he's making. 13. So I mean, there's more than just on the field. There's a lot of things that go into it. To your point, and I'd rather be in the situation the Bills are in right now than with Steph Diggs and Gabe Davis.
All right, I am back here with Matt Warren from SB Nation. We just went over plenty of Amari Cooper reaction. That was actually a pretty fun conversation here. I'm looking forward to him being on the field. Like I said, one thing I love about this trade deadline or I should say about the trade that we really didn't get into much, that really benefits the Bills, is 3 weeks before the trade deadline to get him now, a couple weeks ahead of time. That couple weeks might get him up to speed by when the deadline would have been. So you're going to get more out of Amari Cooper than, say, if this was a 3:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the trade deadline. If it was that kind of trade, it still would have been good. I still would have done it, obviously. But to get him in Buffalo now, when we're just still in mid-October, before week 7, to me is a pretty big deal that might pay off, especially later in the season when him and Josh really get some of that chemistry down, hopefully. Anyway, all right, so again, the game was kind of a while now, but ugly win, sexy in the standings, a 3-point win on Monday night against the Jets. What do I talk about? You know what I want to talk about? Because I've done it twice. I'm going to do it 3 times now. I'm going to publicly apologize to Taylor Rapp because I was really hard on him. I've been hard on him all season long, irrationally hard. I'm a knee-jerk reactor. And sometimes it works out for me on social media. I have a really hot take or something in the heat of the moment, and so many people agree. And then sometimes I'll go back and I'll be like, this was an absolutely idiotic, stupid thing to say. And that's what I did with Taylor Rapp. I said that at one point during that game on Monday, the Bills have the worst safety tandem that I've seen on this team going back through the drought, which is ridiculous. Well, half of it's not that ridiculous. But anyway, here's my point, man. Taylor Rapp won that. The Bills don't win. We spent so much time thinking about, is Cook going to play? Is Shakir going to play? Is Ed Oliver going to play? Teron Johnson, is he finally going to be back? This and that. I didn't spend 5 seconds thinking about Taylor Rapp. I have to be completely honest with you. Bills don't win this game. He literally single-handedly saved 11 points, maybe more. 11 for sure. And then that pass breakup on the final drive right before the interception, too. Who knows? If he doesn't make that play, catches the ball, maybe the Jets kick a field goal or win the game on that drive. Taylor Rapp, what a sensational night. I think he deserves specific praise here, Matt. He was great.
Well, yeah, especially if you're a person that threw him under the bus. But no,
I did. Oh, totally.
He had a lot of really nice plays separating the receiver from the ball. It was nowhere more clear than in the end zone. I think he could have done better on the Hail Mary play. Both safeties could have done better on the Hail Mary play.
Yeah, he went for the pick. Yeah.
But I didn't really want, I know you were down on the safeties for sure. I've been way more down on Hamlin than Rapp. And so maybe him coming back from that injury kind of forced him to see what life would be like sitting from the sidelines a little bit. And he played with a little bit more reckless abandon with the Guardian cap on or whatever it happens to be. But
it was like Ronnie Lott, man. He looked like
he definitely
played in the 80s with the Niners, man. He was just laying. What you used to call when I was a kid, because he used to wear bike football helmets. They were called bike. Yeah. Drop bike. He was dropping bike on Jets receivers, man.
Well, and he was leading with his shoulder and hitting them in the shoulder. So he never got flagged. There was a couple of them. I thought they were going to flag him. And but then you look at the replay, I'm like, that is the cleanest hit you could possibly do. And so I really liked his game. We'll see if he's able to continue it or if it was just kind of a one-time bump coming back from his injury. As long as we're talking about safeties, I still have to wonder when Cole Bishop is going to come in for Damar Hamlin, but I think we'll get to that later.
Well, no, let's get to that right now, actually.
All right, that's fine. Let's go.
I mean, we're talking about Taylor Rapp here. It's funny because that did remind me of back in my high school days. You want to talk about how different the mentality was with football?
Oh, well, yeah.
It was considered cool. But yeah, drop bike means you dropped your helmet and you just hit somebody really hard. That was a phrase that I hadn't thought about that in 30 years until just now. Look, Damar Hamlin, I am really, really hard on this guy. And maybe if I looked at 31 other safeties, starting free safeties in the NFL, maybe I wouldn't be quite so hard. Maybe he's just mid to below mid or mediocre compared to his peers at this position. But it angers me because I like him as a person. I do. Who doesn't like Damar Hamlin? Who doesn't love his story?
Right.
I think Sean McDermott is a little bit, maybe it's because there's not enough veterans on this team that have been here for a while. I think he's a little too married to Damar Hamlin above all else. And I do look at Mike Edwards. I'm like, how is this guy not even getting a look at this point? I don't understand it. He has not been a starter, but he's been a good contributor on 2 Super Bowl championship secondaries. You got a second-round pick on Cole Bishop, which honestly, I'm more bothered that Mike Edwards isn't playing than I am Cole Bishop. You could sell me on Cole Bishop as just a rookie. He missed a lot of the summer because of an injury. He doesn't know the league well, and he did not look good in Houston in his one start when Rapp got hurt. So you could sell me on Cole Bishop's just not ready. To me, deactivate him, make him inactive on game day, and activate Mike Edwards and give him a look. I don't want to go on a long diatribe about Damar Hamlin. he just, he doesn't get beat because he plays. Dude, on the Hail Mary, he was behind the receiver. I mean, this guy plays 50, 60 yards sometimes deep. Of course, he's not getting beat. He doesn't come up and run support unless it's a run blitz. You get a receiver, a tight end, a running back, a lineman, you get your paws on him, it's over. He never gets off a block. Poor angles, not a lot of athleticism to make up for poor angles and mistakes. Maybe I'm spoiled by Micah Hyde. But if I'm not calling, I should say, I'm sorry, let me start that over. If I'm not bringing up Mike Edwards and giving him a look, I am. I know it sounds corny and stupid, but I might call Micah Hyde at this point. But maybe the Bills just like Hamlin more than we do, man. I don't know. I'm at a loss, Matt.
Yeah, he's like a replacement level player. Like, I mean, I would never call him like, in the middle of the pack of free safeties. He's probably on the lower end of like starting free safeties. But like, I'm sure that at this point in Cole Bishop's career, Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich are valuing that Hamlin knows where he's supposed to be at all times. Sure. But the more you look at the problems with the defense, like they're giving up 10-yard plays at such an alarming clip. Like I keep tweeting it during every single game. The Bills defense looks like they're on roller skates and, they're backpedaling, giving up a 10-yard pass play, giving up a 15-yard run play, giving up a 20-yard pass play, giving up a Hail Mary. Like it feels, and then like they'll force a 3 and out and you're like, well, where the heck did that come from? Or, they'll let them come all the way down and kick a field goal and like they can stop them from scoring a touchdown with the benefit of a holding call on the Jets offensive lineman that wasn't even close to the play. But like, so like, but that defense that I think you're not being too hard on him because I think now that Terrell Bernard and why can't I think of Tanner Johnson are back? Like now that those two guys are back, I think that's the weak point of the defense is the free safety. And Cam Lewis wasn't doing great in that nickel role. But now Taron Johnson's back. And then like the linebackers, we talked about how limited they were, but now Terrell Brandon's back. And so I think you're looking at the weak point of the defense now as Damar Hamlin.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And you said I'm not being too harsh on him. Well, I'm not being too harsh on him on this podcast because I'm talking rationally. That wasn't the case, and it hasn't been the case, like I said, during games in the heat of the moment on social media. I have called him awful and terrible, and some fans and even some content creator buddies of mine have taken exception to that. My man Aaron Quinn and I had a nice, we'll call it a conversation on social media on Tuesday because I said he's just a terrible NFL safety. And I stand by that. There was one play specifically. I'm watching the game with my son and my wife on Monday night. It wasn't even that big of a play, but Breece Hall took a handoff and Damar Hamlin was not touched. There's no one near him. Breece Hall must have ran for 13 yards before Hamlin even squared himself up to make contact. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you not coming up and trying to fill there? And maybe that's what I'm just spoiled by when Micah Hyde through these years. Micah Hyde was not afraid to come up and smack you in the mouth in the running game. He was really underrated when it came to run support. So it's not just even the passing, it's the decision-makings. I think he's just horrified to be the last line of defense and get beat. And
but if that's what they're telling him to do, like, I mean, that's what McDermott and Babich want from him. Then, like, it's hard for me to fault Hamlin for that because, like, they know that he's not as good as Micah Hyde. He's not as good as Jordan Poyer. So, like, they're going to be doing different things. They're going to have him like 5 steps behind where Hyde or Poyer would be because of that limited athleticism and like limited athleticism. Like he's way more athletic than me, obviously, but like he's like
I get it.
He's not as good as Hyde and Poyer, right? And so like we have to like at least shift that mentality. Like he's not going to be making the same plays as those guys, and so he's going to be in different positioning. But I just don't think he's been doing a great job on the back end either. So like something else needs to change. That's why you drafted Cole Bishop. That's why you signed Mike Edwards. Like to your point, like if this isn't working, we should try something else. And I'm not usually that guy that's like, just try something until it works. I'm more like, ready, aim, fire, to go back to the Woody Johnson thing. Like have a plan for what's going to happen next. But that plan is Cole Bishop getting up to speed And like, we're in the middle of October now. At some point, dude, got to get up to speed. So
Yeah, no, I trust me, man. I completely get it. And the one thing I will say in DeMar's defense potentially is at the end of the day, look, whether it's you and I talking about it on the show, whether it's you writing about it, whether it's us sifting through all 22 game film, at the end of the day, we don't know what the coaches are telling DeMar Hamlin to do. You can't blame someone for blowing an assignment if you don't know what that assignment is supposed to be. They could be saying, at all costs, ain't nobody getting behind you. At all costs, run backwards if you have to make sure this running back doesn't go for an 80-yard touchdown, make it a 25-yard gain, whatever. You get what I'm saying. We don't know at the end of the day, but I will say this. The difference between Rapp and Hamlin and Rapp, I'm sorry, compared to last year's version of Poyer and Hyde, look, we all know that Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer last year were nothing what they were during their all-pro years. They were two of the best safeties, maybe the best safety tandem in the entire NFL. So again, on some levels, we got spoiled. But even if you only use last year, 2023 as the bar, I think for the first time against the Jets, Taylor Rapp made me not miss Jordan Poyer at all. I've been in the camp of, after the first 3 weeks of the season, I was like, Taylor, plus not to mention early in the season, Taylor Rapp didn't look good early in the year. He literally friendly fired. He's the reason why Teron Johnson got hurt. You go on a lot of things about Taylor Rapp. But I'm like, I wish we would have just kept Jordan Poyer. I don't feel that way after watching him play in Miami, because he's completely cooked at this point now. But my point is this. Rapp is as good or maybe even an upgrade over what Jordan Poyer was last year in 2023. Even the 2023 version of Micah Hyde, which was probably those worst years of Bill, I still think even that version is significantly better than what DeMar Hamlin is right now this season. That makes sense, right? I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with anything you just said there.
Yeah. All right. And one other guy I want to talk about too. Look, we don't need to talk about Josh Allen. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. We all saw that. AJ Epinesa, I thought, had a really good game. 2 sacks, a bullshit call against him that even Aaron Rodgers said was a BS call. Finally stepped up. We've been wondering when he's going to step up and start making some plays. Starting to feel that way about Greg Rizzo right now, by the way. But that's another conversation for another time. A good game for AJ Epinesa. Teron Johnson, just like the week before in Houston. Braylon Spector, Cam Lewis, they're pretty good depth players. If you got to plug them in, they're not always going to kill you, man. Some days they might even be an asset. Some days they're a liability. But we saw in Houston the difference between Bernard and Spector. And we saw in New Jersey the difference between Teron Johnson and Cam Lewis, quite literally with the game on the line. But even before that, Teron was a little bit rusty. But, dude, the way he comes up and run support, I think Dan Orlovsky said it on Wednesday morning. I saw a tweet of his. He's the best tackling or run defending nickel corner in the entire NFL. What a big boost it was to get him back in that game.
Yeah, he got cooked on, I think it was one play in like the first quarter. But like you said, like a little bit rusty, a little bit hesitant coming back. But I mean, certainly by halftime, he was, everywhere you'd expect him to be. It was like, I talked about it with, Terrell Bernard and Terry Johnson, like just seeing both of those guys back has really solidified this defense. After there was a few shaky weeks in there. And, obviously against the Ravens, we saw, them get smoked, but like they were missing those guys. And so having those guys back has really solidified, especially the run defense, but like, the interior of that defense. They're still going out big plays, but I feel better having those guys back, I'll say.
Are you surprised this ultimately became the Ray Davis game? Because man,
I am.
This to me was at the end of the day, this was the Taylor Rapp game and this was the Ray Davis game. 20 carries, 97 yards, 55 yards on 3 receptions as well. 152 yards from scrimmages. By the way, that's the most that any rookies had in a game this season around the league, running backs or receivers. So that's really impressive. Does it move the needle for you in terms of, let's just assume that James Cook is back this week? Is it moving the needle for you at all, what you saw from Ray Davis on what you'd like to see, maybe a little more of a timeshare with the running backs? Because James Cook has looked pretty damn good too this season.
Yeah,
I think
he has.
Maybe the most consistent offensively, good player on the offense so far this year. Does that move the needle for you, Ray? Is that just one game, or are you like, hey, man, Start getting this guy, 6 to 8 carries a game. Is it matchup dependent? What do you think?
Yeah, it does not change anything for me. If James Cook is healthy, he's going to be the number one back. And then Ray Davis and Ty Johnson can split carries behind him. It's probably going to go back to what it was like in the beginning. Now, if he's limited with his whatever a toe, ankle, foot thing, then yeah, I mean, I can see Ray Davis getting more carries this week against the Titans, but I don't necessarily think once James Cook is healthy that you want to take that off the field. I think you saw a great performance by the Bills offensive line as part of that as well. There were times where he was getting up, all the way out to the safeties before he was even getting touched. And so a lot of play, whether it's play design, whether it's the offensive line, just absolutely road grading people. He definitely benefited from that. I loved his play on whatever it was, the Josh Allen scramble drill, where he was able to haul it in barely, I might add.
He jumped so early. He jumped so early.
Yeah, he was very anxious. He was very, very excited for that. But, I loved the play. Certainly his vision was great. I loved everything he did in this game, but it doesn't change that James Cook is going to be your number one running back, and then Ty Johnson and Ray Davis are behind. Quick story. One of my friends has James Cook in fantasy football, was asking me, which of the backup running backs from the two teams she should consider going with. And then as soon as James Cook was inactive, I'm like, I think I'd go with Ty Johnson. And of course, like everybody else, I was absolutely incorrect. So
what's
public
funny,
apologies.
Matt, you go to that first drive. What happened on the first play of the game? Ty Johnson takes the ball, sweep right. He goes for 12.5 yards. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
it was all Ray Davis. So, by the way, that drive to me was a major tone setter for the game. The Jets come down. They kick a field goal. Quite frankly, I felt like that was almost a victory for the Bills defense, the way they looked on that drive.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then the Bills take the ball, 9 plays, 8 of them runs, and right back down the field, and they score a touchdown. And even the one pass was to Kincaid, who trucked somebody near the sidelines, man. You could tell in that first drive, it's all right, the Bills are not intimidated physically whatsoever by the Jets. I actually thought that was an important drive. I agree with you about Cook. I'll say this, so now I do have more confidence now that if something happens to James Cook, confidence in Ray Davis. And I think there's certain scenarios, maybe if the Bills are protecting a lead in the second half and you're trying to move the chains and you just want north to south, Ray Davis might be your guy going forward. But it's not to take nothing away from James Cook. Let's not forget the dude's been really good. Last thing I want to talk about from this game, I can't stomach talking about the refs anymore. We already know that. You hit on explosive plays. That's an issue. I think the Jets, a quarter of their plays were for 10 or more yards. That's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable against good teams going forward. But I do got to ask you about the coaching at the end of the first half. I mean, week after week after week in these kind of games, something goes wrong. How much of it's on Sean McDermott? How much is on the players? I guess we could debate that. But I am tired of these Kodak timeouts where he calls timeout, sees what the offense is doing. When the hell is the last time that shit's even worked for starters? But to rush 2 guys just didn't make any sense, especially if the 2 guys defending the sidelines are literally edge rushers, Rizzo and Epinesa. And then the last part of that thing that baffled me is if you're going to have Rizzo 25, 30 yards off the line, you may as well put him 52 yards off the line in the end zone. Your boy's 6'7" and a former high school wide receiver. I feel like if you're in that kind of defense, he should be the guy defending the end zone. Just nothing about it made sense. Sean always says, we'll learn from it. It's a good win, a big win on the road against a divisional rival, but do you kind of feel like this game did nothing to increase your confidence with Sean McDermott? Because it didn't do anything for me to it didn't move the needle for me. The first 3 weeks of the season moved the needle for me with Sean McDermott. I thought he coached circles around Gannon, McDaniel, and Peterson. But this win didn't move the needle for me at all. Still, I'm wary of him with these kind of moments in these kind of games.
Yeah, and you should be. I mean, he's proven over and over again that he doesn't do well in these situations. So his take after the game was that they were defending that, the quick out because they thought the Jets were going to try to get into field goal range. Another clip with Belichick from the Manning cast, as that play is going on, as soon as I think it was 2 or 3 seconds into the play, Belichick says, I'd Hail Mary it. Like you could see the same thing happening with Rodgers. Like the quick out was gone. They knew they were going to have to throw it deep. And so like they changed in the middle of the play. So the Bills obviously should have been defending both of those options, but McDermott's answer was, well, we were defending the quick out. Well, sure, but like you have to know that that's a possibility going into that play, that they're going to just go for the end zone. And so like the way that, it was Taron Johnson was right in front of Allen Lazard. He gets pushed down by Lazard. They let stuff go on Hail Marys. I get it. He's pushed down by Lazard. And then all the safeties are behind the wide receiver. Like that's not how you're coached to defend a Hail Mary, right? Like it's just, and then like you said, having two rushers at all. Bernard comes in late, which he's the one that actually like, I guess forces Rodgers to throw, but it's also when all the receivers were clumped. So he was going to let it fly anyway. Bernard comes in late from like defending that short out. And, it didn't make sense to me at all to only rush two guys. You can put a cornerback or a linebacker out in that short out place and have those four rushers still be there. Obviously, whatever they did not work. And like, this could be just us second guessing it. But when I saw two pass rushers, I'm like, they've been getting to Rodgers all day. Why let the receivers get set up in the end zone? Why not just go after Rodgers now so he doesn't have a chance to throw it? So
Sean McDermott, it's like he finds new ways to create reasons for the Bills fans to get pissed off at him. And this certainly added to that lore. It's like the Bills got to do things to overcome other factors that normally don't happen against other teams, like that Hail Mary. Of course, that happens to the Bills.
Yeah.
Last week in Houston, I've never in my life have felt more confident that a guy was going to hit a 59-yard field goal than Fairburn. Seriously, normally that's what, a 25 to maybe 30% kick, 30%, 35. That felt like an 85% kick to me. Like, he ain't missing this. Conversely,
think about how different you would feel today if they didn't go 70 yards and however many seconds it was at the end of the first half. Like I know that like there's a butterfly effect to that, but like the Bills are up, whatever it was, by their, was it 20 to 10 after that?
It was 20 to 10. They had just scored a touchdown, and they're double dipping because the Bills are about to get the ball in the third quarter. They're like a touchdown away from this being a wrap 4 minutes into the third quarter.
So you're up 10 points going into halftime, and you get the ball coming out of halftime. Think about how different, like the Bills probably even play that first drive after the half, or even like, I mean, I'm not a confidence guy. I'm not a momentum guy. Like that's just not who I am. Like I'm an execution guy. And so like they're able to do different things up 10 coming out of halftime than they are up 3 coming out of halftime. And like the Jets still feel like they're in that game. And so the Jets can keep running the ball. The Jets had the ball like a couple minutes into the third quarter with a chance to take the lead because of that stupidity at the end of the first half. And so it just changed really the rest of the game. And like you're saying, it's just so baffling that they keep coming up with dumbass ways to like allow points at the end of the first half or the end of the game.
I'm going to keep my sanity and refuse to talk about Tyler Bass on this podcast. It's just, he's not going anywhere. At least he's not going anywhere this week. It's going to be what it's going to be with him. Though I will say one thing though. People are still talking about trades, but potentially free safety maybe being a target. If there's any way that Brandon Beane could scour a team and you want to go find a crap team right now with an affordable kicker who might be in the last year of his contract and you want to make a trade, I would consider making a trade for a kicker because that might actually end up mattering. Of course, you'd have to find a team that's going absolutely nowhere. Do the research, Matt. You're a research guy. Go find a kicker on a shitty team that's got a reasonable contract that could be potentially available in a trade. Make sure you write that down so you don't forget.
You got it.
Tyler Bass, I think at the end of the day right now, it's two things. Number one, there's just not anyone out there that they consider a better option. And number two, Brandon Beane, I'll give him credit. Like he figured out his wide receiver plan wasn't working, but I don't think he wants to eat all that dead cap money that it would cost to not have Tyler Bass kicks. So
Well, right. You can keep Bass on the roster, and you can keep Bass on the roster and just make him a game day inactive too. Like signing someone to the practice squad doesn't preclude that, but like it obviously changes the nature of the situation if you add a practice squad kicker. So I think once you add that practice squad kicker, it's hard to tell Bass that you trust him. So obviously, I don't think they should trust him, but like, whatever. Like,
his problem isn't physical. His problem is mental. He's a head case right now. He's got the yips. I mean, he's just got no confidence. And if you go sign someone to the practice squad, it's only going to make it worse. Right after that game, I was looking up kickers. Like Riley Patterson was a name. Brandon McManus was a name. He actually signed with Green Bay. Yeah, but he signed with Green Bay, so he's out of that picture now as well. Before we get out of here, real quick, and I'll have a more extensive Bills Titans preview episode tomorrow. But a quick little look ahead to this game. If you're out there saying the Titans are 1-4 and the Bills have just played 3 straight hard road games and now they're back home, this is going to be easy breezy, a walk in the park. I don't agree with that. I really don't. The Titans are 1-4. 3 of their 4 losses have been 1-score games. They did smack Miami. Their defense is good. Like they got horses, man. Quandre Diggs, L'Jarius Sneed, although he's been awful this year statistically in PFF. Jeffrey Simmons. I looked up some EPA stuff. I'm not an EPA guy. Dude, I don't even know what EPA means. I'm going to be honest with you. But what I do know is that the better teams have good EPA and the shittier teams, generally speaking, don't. Their defense is 6th best EPA per play, 5th best rushing EPA per play, 4th best pass rushing success rate per play. And they can bring pressure on you when you got to throw the ball. So I think their defense is pretty good. Pollard's a good running back, and he's actually been pretty good this year. 339 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. It's the quarterback. Will Levis he's hero Josh Allen but only the parts where hero Josh Allen sucks. He is.
YOLO Josh Allen is what we call him.
He is. YOLO. What is it? YOLO?
YOLO.
Yeah. He's got 3 picks already. He's been sacked 15 times, 7 interceptions already this season. He's been benched. I don't know what to make of the Titans right now because I thought this was going to be a team that was going to be a sleeper team in the conference because I thought they had an excellent offseason, man. They signed Boyd. They signed Ridley. They trade for Sneed, who was one of the best corners in the NFL last year. And statistically with PFF, he's garbage right now. Well, I don't know what to make of this team, but I don't know. If they don't suck at quarterback, this could be I don't think this is that easy in a game. I guess that's what I'm getting at, Matt. Maybe you disagree.
I mean, I think this is the get right game for the Bills defense, to be perfectly honest with you. If they're giving up 15-yard plays to Will Levis and the Titans defense, we're in for a very long season, like as content creators, but like 31st in offense, 31st in turnover percentage, dead last in adjusted net yards per passing attempt, interception percentage, dead last by a long shot. Like if there's ever a game where like you're going to get your DeMar Hamlin interception or, Rasul Douglas is going to jump a route like he's prone to do, like this is the game. They are in the middle of the road for sacks taken. So I don't think you're going to get like, your Greg Rousseau 3-sack game that you might want, Pat, but I think that this passing offense is so bad that if the Bills don't take advantage of that, like we're going to be in for a very, very long season.
It's funny too, because Bills fans have been really frustrated with the wide receiver play this year. Tennessee is like, you got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Tyler Boyd, who you signed this offseason, and you got Calvin Ridley, who you gave a lot of money to. 3, unlike the Bills, it's not a talent issue with the Tennessee Titans, but now we're 5 games. They've only played 5 games instead of 6 like the Bills. But 5 games in, DeAndre Hopkins has 14 catches this year. Tyler Boyd has 13 catches. Calvin Ridley Jr. only has 9 catches. None of those guys are averaging even 3 catches per game. And Calvin Ridley blew up at a media person about not getting the ball early enough, using the F word and stuff like that. I mean, they're a frustrated unit, and it's almost comical to watch the weekly Will Levis. How will he turn the ball over? What kind of crazy shit is he going to do? But yeah, you're right, man. And this is a get right game for the defense, who Sean McDermott is hopeful, he said on Tuesday, that Ed Oliver would be back. And I'm not the biggest Ed Oliver guy. Everyone knows that, but he's better than Austin Johnson. He's better than Dwayne Carter. Dwayne Carter looked good in Houston, not so much in New Jersey, but getting Ed Oliver back too. I like this defense, man, minus DeMar Hamlin.
I know.
It's just,
Me too. No, we've seen Calvin Ridley like absolutely destroy the Bills defense. So I'm hoping that they don't watch the Jacksonville Jaguars tape from last year when they're game planning for this game. I mean the Titans on offense. Like I don't want them doing all those back shoulder throws to Calvin Ridley. That's the one caveat I'll throw in there.
Real quick here before we get out of here, just a couple minutes.
Sure.
We're on the AFC. So another year, another season where Lamar Jackson has played himself into an MVP race. He might even be the front runner right now in the AFC. He's already won it twice. Such a polarizing conversation to have because statistically he won great last year, but he won MVP. And year after year in the regular season, this dude just steps up. It's the 7th year in the league, same as Josh. And you're talking, he's right in the mix now to win his 3rd MVP. The Ravens really seem to be firing on all cylinders after starting the season, with an embarrassing loss at home to the Raiders, which shows they're far from invincible, but they seem to really be putting it together. The Bills saw that firsthand. We saw that firsthand a couple weeks ago. I don't really say who's the best team in the AFC. I kind of tier them. They're definitely on a top tier right now, man. And Lamar's playing great, dude. You got to give it up to him. He really is. Yeah,
they still have a long way to go. They have to play the Browns defense twice, the Steelers defense twice. The Texans are on their schedule. But I don't think I'd put anybody else in front of him right now. I mean, he's 350 passing yards ahead of Josh Allen, and they have the same number of passing touchdowns. Like, I mean, are we going to ding Lamar for throwing 2 interceptions when Josh has thrown at least that many interceptable passes? Probably not. Like, his yards per attempt are way better than Josh. Like, he's got more rushing yards than Josh. Like, I just don't know how you put anybody in front of him right now. So I do think he's the front runner, as well as say Sam Darnold has played this year. Like, I don't think that you're really going to do that. So, I mean, I do think he's the front runner. I was more upset last year that he got whatever it was, 49 of the 50 votes than I am that he's the front runner this year because, I mean, he's playing better than probably everybody else in the league. Maybe not Jaden Daniels, but I don't think Daniels is going to continue that streak either. But I just don't know. Like, we're obviously talking about the Bills, so I don't know. There's probably not any metric where you put Josh ahead of him right now, other than the fact that Josh has been working with that wide receiver room, whereas Lamar's had a little bit better wide receiver play.
So last week, the Bills played on Monday night, and I thought the Sunday schedule was boring. Like, there weren't a lot of good, juicy matchups. Not the case this week. As it pertains to the Bills, 2 games specifically that really stick out to me. You got the Devonte Adams, Aaron Rodgers coached New York Jets going to Pittsburgh. That is a big game for both teams. And then you also got Miami, who's 2-3, and they're on the road going to Indy. And Indy's been okay. And that feels like a must-win for the Miami Dolphins. It's not just realistic. It's very realistic. The Bills can handle their business at home against the Titans this week, which they should. The Jets lose at Pittsburgh, which I'm sure Pittsburgh's favored right now, even though who the hell knows what they're doing at quarterback. But Pittsburgh's been good. And the Jets offensive line, guess what? They're not very good. That could happen.
It could be bad for Aaron Rodgers.
Sure. I hope it is because I hate him. And then Miami at Indies. And then Miami loses that game. If Miami and the Jets lose and the Bills beat the Titans, to me, the AFC East is almost a wrap 7 weeks into the season. Because now the Jets, you're 3.5 back. The Miami's 2.5 back. 7 weeks into the season with the Buffalo Bills out in front. Like, this division could be, for all intents and purposes, almost over by Sunday at 7:30 p.m. And I'm not even, that's not hyperbole. Like, I legitimately mean that. And there's a good chance Jets and Miami both lose. That's what I'm saying. The Jets got to win. You just traded for Adams. You're 2-4. You can't go to 2-5. You're 2-5. You're toast. I think the Jets are thinking 7 seed right now anyway. But
yeah, I looked it up. The Jets are actually favored by 1.5 in Pittsburgh. So that's how the Pittsburgh offense is like factoring into this whole thing. Just throwing that out there. I was surprised. I thought it would be like, pick them at worst, but no, the Jets are favored by 1.5. So yeah, the Steelers, look, their passing offense has been bad. Like Justin Fields, Justin Fields is 4-2. It's like the Windsor QB stat crowd is like, all over it. Like, and yes, he's done some nice things, but mostly with his legs. And, they're 28th in passing yards per game. Like everyone's saying that they shouldn't go to Russell Wilson. Like maybe their offensive line's a little suspect. Maybe Russell Wilson's going to get killed. And if that happens, they can bring back Justin Fields. Like it's not a big deal. Anyway, so yeah, it is a big game, Sunday Night Football, so everyone will be able to watch it. Very much looking forward to that game. I get to looking forward to turning that on and kind of settling in, hopefully after a Bills win, just to see what's happening. And then like for Miami, like you said, it feels like a must win, and yeah, kind of sort of is, but like their schedule over the next like 6 weeks is very winnable. They've got Colts, Cardinals, Rams, Raiders, and Patriots over the next 6 weeks, with the Bills thrown in there in November. And so like they have a game against the Browns later in the season. Like they're going to be at 8-9 wins by the end of this. Like, all right,
but go look
I'm not writing them off yet.
Beyond the Browns game, go look at the end of their season schedule.
I know.
They're at Green Bay, they're at Houston, they're playing the Jets twice. I'm still more concerned. Who are you more concerned about, Miami or the Jets? Pick a team right now. Who concerns you the most of those two?
Jets? Probably the Jets. Yeah.
The Jets concern me more than Miami does. I think Miami's just got, I don't think the issue at quarterback, even with Tua, I don't think that issue is going away. Tua has not played well late in the season against good teams, minus the injury. Their defense is in shambles with major injuries, including Holland, who's hurt now. Yeah, dude, I think Miami is just toast. Yeah. Last thing, too, divisional stuff aside, just as a football fan, 2 juicy matchups, or conference games, AFC versus NFC, they're just going to be fun to watch. Like, who's the better conference? Well, you got Houston at Green Bay, and you got Kansas City at Frisco. Those are sexy matchups. So beyond the Bills game, who's playing at 1:00, thank God the Bills are playing at 1:00 on Sunday. Lots of other stuff to get into. Like I said, 2 divisional games. I'm just not going to count the Patriots at this point. Not even thinking about that. I don't even know who the hell they're playing, to be honest with you. But yeah, man, Houston at Green Bay, Kansas City at Frisco. It's just going to be a fun Sunday, a fun weekend of football.
If you want to watch the Patriots, they're at 9:30 a.m. against the Jaguars in London. So you get to get the entire gamut from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. or whatever it is.
If you're not gambling heavily on that game, you are a real one. If you are getting up at 9:00 a.m. on Sunday morning when you could be sleeping in and relaxing and going out with the family to a diner for breakfast, or cooking up a nice breakfast in your kitchen, chilling out, getting some work done around the house. If you're sitting on the couch and you're watching the Miami Dolphins play the Jacksonville Jaguars at 9:30 a.m., you are a legitimate football junkie, I feel like.
I think that's probably right. No, So yeah, I'm looking for the Chiefs is going to be in the Chiefs 49ers is in the national window in late afternoon. That's going to be a huge game. Yeah. It's going to have a huge viewership number. Houston at Green Bay is going to be a very nice game, but it's also on at 1:00 when the Bills are playing. Mm-hmm. Go Pack, go. We're rooting for the Packers pretty good. So yeah, they'll certainly be fun games, and the folks on Red Zone will have a lot of fun stuff to watch in that 1:00 window, I think.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys.
Lions Vikings in that window too. That 1:00 window. That's going to be a good game.
Oh, I didn't even mention that game. Well, that's because it's NFC.
There's no AFC. Yeah, exactly.
But that's another sexy game. Detroit's going to end up with Reddick, by the way. I think
okay.
They're going to find a way. They're going to find a way. Hutchinson was such a big loss. I like Detroit, man. I never hate on them.
But if the Jets trade Reddick to an NFC team, they have to give the Eagles more compensation, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, well, then forget what I just said.
I think they're gonna end up trading him to an AFC team, is my point. Because there's some trigger built in there that makes that work. Oh, but I should do some more research.
These are the things that you learn when you listen to Talking Buffalo or watch Talking Buffalo. My guy Matt Warren, make sure you follow him on Twitter at MattRichWarren. Of course, check out SB Nation, whatever your football team is, whether it's the Bills or any team around the league. when shit goes down like it did on Tuesday, a wild Tuesday, Jet stuff, Bills stuff, all kinds of stuff, make sure you check out SB Nation. Thanks, buddy. Always a pleasure having you on, man.
Thanks a lot, Pat.
All right, I'll be back with another episode tomorrow, Friday episode. I actually think I'm going to be on live after the Sabres game. We'll talk about how the Sabres did. It will be their second of back-to-back nights, and also a more extensive Bills Titans preview. All that coming up on the show tomorrow.